All right, these are as usual my favorite opportunities is all the international calls across the pond, across whatever. Andrea, welcome to the Leaders Who Care series.
Well, thank you very much. Great to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
I know you care already, but now we're going to show everybody that you care and why you care and so on. And I'm happy to have you. If you can start, always the place to start it by briefly introducing yourself, but not yet what you're doing or your business or whatnot, who you are, maybe where you're from originally, where you are now. There could be something you've never told anybody that you want to share with the world right now. That's always
No,
exciting.
no.
Okay, well, I try all the always, and
Yeah, no,
I get some good
no.
stuff sometimes. But yeah, tell us a little bit about you, whatever you're comfortable talking about, family. Just
Sure.
who's
Yeah,
Andrea?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think what is always kind of interesting, important to know because it's very much a part of me is that I'm German Hungarian or Hungarian German, whatever you think. It's I was born in Budapest, actually, in Hungary. Um, my mom was a single mom back then. So I lived there. We lived there. We have been living in Budapest for until I was what 9 years old. The English teacher of my mom was a very good friend of her mother, her future mother-in-law, and basically then they made some matchmaking and well introduced my stepdad or my dad actually, and then to my mom. They met, they fell in love. It was still behind the Iron Curtain, so it has taken some time until we could legally leave the country. And then we moved to Germany first, to a very small city in Germany. So it was pretty much of a, I would say, culture clash. That's new language coming from a city with more than 1 million inhabitants. I grew up in really literally in the center, and coming to a small town with what, about 10 or 12,000 people.
Quite a difference.
That's pretty much different. Yeah, totally different school system, everything else. So that was rather a challenging time, I have to say. And but well, it really took some time until getting around to that. I was visiting often my grandparents. First time it was always a lot of homesickness back home. And so yeah, it was a rather difficult time until you really arrive and you're getting there. So, but well, it was then afterwards I learned the language, got new friends, went to school. Uh, then we moved again. So it was a little bit of moving around, but not that far. There I made my what we call it is Abitur after 9 years actually. Um, Went to university. I was never kind of the sporty girl. Actually, I was more like I loved always reading. I loved writing. I had a still have probably, but I had back then really lots of fantasy, and I started writing actually when I was pretty young, kind of all kinds of stories.
Cool.
Um, yeah. So what else? I was mouthy always.
Oh, who would have thought?
Yeah, yeah, always kind of not very good with hierarchies, even back then. Um, yeah, and yeah, I dreamed actually first to be an actress and then a journalist, and then I ended up doing what I'm doing. So it's a kind of a rather wide stretch.
Well, if you know, we do know some Hollywood agents if you're interested.
Yeah,
Um,
totally. Well, what else? Well, probably a little bit sadder. I lost my dad about 13 years ago. Um, he passed away from pancreatic cancer. So that's kind of that it was very hard. So by now I'm not married. I don't have any children. I have just a bunch of godchildren actually, who are also pretty much grown up by now. And yeah, it's me and my mom. So we are pretty close, and we're sticking together. many
Well,
things.
you got to cherish those moments. I think I might have mentioned to you, I recently visited my aunt in Montreal, who's like a second mom, and she's now 97. And and she told me when she turned 96, having all her coherency and everything about her, she said to me, Mark, where did 95 years go? And I was like, such a simple question that was so profound when I heard it that and she understood everything. She hadn't had any issues yet, and but it's like she said, like, how is this possible? That that it went 95
Yeah,
years ago. But logically, but it's still like,
yeah,
wow, how's
yeah,
that?
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. She's got an 80 actually right now, but she's still pretty fit. But nevertheless, someone told me recently, because when I said also that my uncle is actually, he left also Hungary, so he's living in Switzerland. My aunt is from the Netherlands, so we are right now quite international. But we've been just discussing recently with someone, and he said it's getting really strange when you start not having that many people where you can say, "Oh, do you remember?"
Right. That's why it's important for people who do remember to keep remembering.
Exactly.
Which
Yeah.
will lead us to something in a minute. Sure.
Well, yeah, absolutely. That's
Very good
just, but that's,
segue. Thank you for that
yeah,
opportunity to segue. When you were in school, you went to the I'm trying to see if I pronounce it, Universität Augsburg, right?
Oxford. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
So
yeah,
what were
exactly.
you envisioning for yourself back then?
Um, I I started studying international management or something like that, and that I absolutely didn't like that. I found it really very boring. So my really my passion was always about literature, about history, and about communication. So basically, that's what I then said. Okay, well, you know what? It might be more reasonable and more sensible, kind of doing that. But well, let's do something which is more kind of closer to my heart, and that's what I did. And I always, as I said, I was mouthy actually, and always a little bit rebellious. So that's why I always thought I uh, I want something for myself. I couldn't really imagine myself being a corporate person for until the end of time, and I was always thinking, oh my, I need to build something. I need to kind of having my own, where it's more like where I have the ability to say how I want to build something and what I want to do, rather than I have someone who's telling me what I have to do. So that's actually what I was always kind of dreaming about. Yeah.
That's pretty cool when you're in university, and I always find it interesting because part of university is supposed to be maturing and thinking about what you want to do and stuff like that. So it's and protesting probably sometimes and all sorts of things.
True. Yep. Yep.
Um, that
Absolutely.
that's growing up to a great degree and getting
Yes, it
influenced.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, and getting
Absolutely. Yeah.
um
Yeah.
yeah, I wanted to segue a little bit into, our firm is based on the premise of how talent and leadership and impact and we trademark the term leaders who care. And leaders who care understand the value that every individual has value, they should say. And
True enough.
every individual should have the opportunity to have financial, physical, and mental well-being. Um, I want to ask you, how did you come to value, and I'm going to quote a little bit here. You value, work where culture and commerce meet, linking history,
Mm-hmm.
innovation, and global networks. You say, how did you come to value that?
Um, I think also from university time, and also from my I was always very passionate about communication and building networks. I'm a deep believer that actually that's nowadays, it's really one very much the heart of our business. I mean, at least of my business actually, is to build networks and to communicate. And I very much learned also about that, how important that is during COVID time, when we it was really, just like very much also online, and but everybody was drawing back, and things have changed also since COVID very much. Also about when you're talking about really about talking to people, about communicating, um, and that's I was always about the very much of a beginning that, and it's always probably also because of my background, because even it's not that far away, but Hungary and Germany have a rather different culture, also from communicating, from warmth, of how you do business. And that's it's totally different. The in Hungary, it's also you start from very much of the private level, uh, and then you're moving on to the business. In Germany, that's very the different the other way around,
Right.
and that's how I learned also, and I came to that, from the background. I have been working in the past with many people from different backgrounds, from the US, the UK, Germany, Austria, different parts of Europe. And that's how I learned that communication and network and really respect and integrity are really the key to working together. At least that's my philosophy, actually, and that's how I work.
Well, especially these days, super important. Can you share a little bit about, before we go further in one of the key things I love that you're doing, but share about your entrepreneurial ventures. I mean,
Hmm.
agritech, energy, defense,
Yeah.
and how you
Well,
value what you're talking
yeah,
about now, cooperation and investment.
yeah. I mean, I was very young actually when I started my first company. I was around not even really 30. I was in a what we call Mittelstand, which is kind of a mid-sized company. Owner was well, middle-aged gentleman, always teaching me what I have to do and what not. And I was coming back always, and I was whining and nagging also back at home. And then my wife's father actually back then already said to me, "Well, if you think you can do that better, then just do it on your own. Start something."
Right.
So it was actually family, friends who really funded me back then. I was always grateful for that. And I had practically zero, zero knowledge what I'm doing. Seriously, zero. Uh, and then there's some very, it was pure luck, I would think. I got an advisory with Volkswagen, actually, with Volkswagen Bank back then. I spent there 2 or 3 years. Because I had more kind of a small advisory company, where as a relatively young woman, was very much starting with heavyweights, like Volkswagen. Then I had to deal with Audi, and I had to deal with some IT people. So it's it teaches you a lot, I can tell you.
Yeah, for sure.
it's and it's kind of a very it's an interesting experience. But and then really by an accident, because of my Hungarian background, I got introduced to a gentleman who is developing the first privately owned waste to energy plant in Hungary. Uh, and then he and his team, he just approached me and said, "Well, you know what? You did something. I heard you do something around with banks. Could you just probably help us to get some funding?" So again, just like really completely by accident, not really doing very much about actually what I'm doing, but again, I jumped into that one, and that's how actually it started. So it's we did. Back then, the waste to energy plant in Hungary, which was really a long, long, long project, I would say.
Yeah.
But again, learning a lot about going through the whole permitting, licensing, processing, whatever. Then again, through the network, which I've started to build slowly in this area in Austria, I get acquainted with some developers who were doing it really, really very much had before really the hype was coming in on solar and wind. And that's where I really started to also to work with them. Then my dad, I got introduced to an Australian family fund who then said, well, you know what? Why not working with us and sourcing projects for us? So, and it's just like, I think I had a really, I was very lucky because there was always somewhere who introduced me to someone and which just brought me again to the next step.
Well,
Uh,
you said before, I'm really good at interrupting, by the way, you'll find.
yeah,
But you said
it's
before,
fine. Go ahead.
you said before, you didn't really know you, and you made an emphatic, you knew nothing. And I think I think people recognize, really good people recognize um, ability and passion and openness to learn and openness to be coached as a big characteristic just as much as whatever experience you had sometimes, which is never not bad to have experience, but there's a difference between years of experience and actual experiences, and as well as the quality of the person to take on a project and to be able to engage with other people and network and whatnot. So obviously they saw that in you.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it was, I was always good in talking and presenting and doing a pitch, let's put it that way. But I always pretty good in working with developers, and telling them how to communicate also. I mean, this is what that's something also which I really experienced, that a lot of these people are very much on the technology side, and also developers. Everyone loves their own project. They're falling in love with it, and it's sometimes you're really getting a little bit blind left and right, and sometimes they are kind of thinking that if you are trying to criticize or at least point out some issues, then it's kind of personal insult. How can you do that? Or how can someone doing that? How can an investor do that? So it's for them also a learning process. So that's what I always was trying to tell them, that look, you want the investment, so they have the right to ask you questions, even the critical ones, uh, and it's your job to convince them and to sell them. Or basically, it's our job because then we were doing this together. And on the other hand, if I was sitting on the other side of the table, and obviously I was the one who was just trying to poke on the holes and trying to get on their weaknesses, actually. Yeah.
Well, a couple of quotes as I've met you and we're talking right now, a couple of quotes would come to mind that I think people probably notice. Maya Angelou is one of my favorite persons to quote, and she said, "Most people will forget what you said, they'll forget what you've done, but they'll always remember how you made them feel."
Mm-hmm.
And that's one quote. And then the second one is clear is kind. That the clearer you are with people, the kinder you are, and the more chance there's going to be trust because they understand what you're talking about, and it's not a lot of smoke and mirrors and this and that and whatever. So those two quotes come up when I've talked to you so far that I think people recognize and and sometimes when you don't know what you don't know, you don't stop. You go.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I want to say that there were I had huge failures. I mean, honestly, seriously. I mean, but that's when you
That's when you learn.
that's when you learn. I mean, there are there are experiences where I would say even back then, okay, it would have been great not to make them because that's not necessarily that great, but you learn. And this old song with Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire, uh, pick yourself up and dust yourself off.
Yeah,
Well, yeah,
it's a
that's kind of,
classic.
yeah,
Everybody uses that. And hey, listen,
yeah,
any successful person that we've all seen, it's never that they've had any failures.
yeah.
Otherwise, if no failures means you probably haven't done anything. That type of thing, which kind of leads me to something that you're doing that really triggered what I was excited about talking to you about, and it kind of relates to this thing going on right now that the fourth industrial revolution is AI and tech, which makes sense. But a lot of people are saying the fifth industrial revolution is about humanity. and how to balance those. And what you're doing, in my mind, really is about humanity. And I was fascinated when I discovered you were telling the Jewish story of Europe, its brilliance and brutality, and translating it into projects that matter today. And you're doing that, through essays, public dialogue, and et cetera, et cetera. And to quote, and the foundation I'm building against antisemitism, I bring memory into the present. And that
Yeah.
goes back to something you said before about you can't talk to many people anymore that remember certain things. And part of that is
Mhm.
because they're born after it, basically.
Yeah.
Um, Tell us about what you're doing with the Jewish story of Europe, what it is, why it's important to you, and how you're doing it.
Hmm. Uh, I would say the whole thing really started, probably not surprisingly, after October 7th, and 2 years ago, actually, unfortunately. Um, and I wasn't really very active on LinkedIn until then. And when I got on LinkedIn a day afterwards, it was very haunting that I've seen so many posts, also from interestingly from some colleagues who I had no idea that they were Jewish, never ever. Um, and it was really, they felt so alone, and that was, it was really haunting. And that's when I did my first post, and then a few people came back to me and said thank you, and that really threw me, because I thought, this is not something where anyone should it be necessary to thank you actually for empathy and compassion. So the more I got into that, it's I was starting thinking about, um, also due to my interest, and I'm a history nerd, um, about really what Jews have been, and their values, uh, what they're meaning for Europe. And me as a Hungarian and German is especially important, because obviously German history, um, but also Hungarian, because if you're looking at Hungary has, a very rich Jewish history going back until 15th, 16th century. So I started really, doing some series, and also what is interesting, I've made really some great friends actually, also doing this work. And I started really a series actually, which was saying, the Jewish history of Europe, going really from Spain over Central Eastern Europe actually until to Poland. And when you're looking at everything, also what was coming up also about, well, this really kind of tsunami, which is going, of anti-Semitism, which is going really all over Europe right now in a horrible way.
Mhm.
Um, I thought, okay, well, this is not enough. This can't be enough. And on the other hand, when I was talking also to a few younger people, um, there were things which I learned during my when I was in school in history, which was very clear, and we learned that. And today, sometimes the knowledge about history, straightforwardly, it's appalling,
Right.
absolutely appalling, horrible. Um, and they are very much learning snippets and slogans from TikTok and from Instagram or whatever. But literally, there is no the willingness to dig deeper. So that's why I really started to think about what kind of options we could have, and what can we do. Um, and well, from LinkedIn, I moved also to further onto Substack, because that's where you can do a little bit of the deeper stories. And we are a few friends actually where we started setting up, and we said, okay, we need to move forward with a kind of a foundation. And what we have in mind now, and what we are building on, is literally what I would call is an ecosystem, what we are calling, or I was calling, the missing pages of Europe. Um, and that would be one part is where we are talking about essays, about educational materials. On the other hand, we would have a website where we have the opportunity to set up partnerships with museums, with art on. And the third arm actually is, which is then the foundation, which is then empowering us um, to educate and also to create educational material, be it on then on YouTube also. So that's kind of the idea then, to move forward to YouTube and to some other visual kind of opportunities. Uh,
Well, tell us about the stories you want to tell. Like what's the
yeah.
message you want to get out?
Um, for me, I I think it was very important also to, first of all, one important message is that the Jewish history of Europe, it's innate. It has been there for. In Germany, it's 3,000 years old. Uh, and the other thing is actually that in the past, Europe has been very good on erasing a lot of important names. I mean, that's also one thing which I did, is kind of a small series of erased Jewish
Hmm.
founders actually in Europe. I mean, the father actually of the Volkswagen Beetle was someone was Jewish. Uh, One of the co-founders and investors in Porsche was Jewish. Uh, the one who really was working on the basics of aspirin was Jewish. Uh, and basically, you can go through Europe um, and you find hundreds of stories like that. And we don't know them. We don't know, for example, right now that we had hundreds of artists actually, but we have still looted art,
Right.
which are literally in the basement of museums, um, and are part of, well, Jewish collections. So these are the things which we and I want really to come back into memory, because I think that's important to understand. It's important to understand also for us, because we keep on forgetting. And what is also important to shape the narrative, we have been, it's the rhetoric, which is right now out there, um, is ugly, to be very honest.
It is. Yeah.
Um, and so also through essays and also through education, we want to reshape that, and we want to win it back. We want to shape it. We don't want the other ones to shape it, because right now we have lost control of the language, of the story, and everything else. And what we want to do is we want to win it back, and we want to shape it ourselves.
No, I love that. The point of not forgetting is to not to hate or to grieve all the time. Whatnot is
No,
that it doesn't happen again, whatever, or good and people who are recognized for stuff they do, including women, by the way. There's so many women that have been overlooked for what they've done.
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, that's kind of also. I mean, I think it's that's where we're starting now. I don't know where. Honestly, it's the beginning of a journey. We have started. It's what I say. It's like my baby right now. So the baby will grow. The baby will go out there, start walking and running, uh, and probably it will get lots of brothers and sisters. But that's it's really very close to my heart.
Well, I think
Um,
I think you've hit on something that's close to a lot of people's hearts because people want the truth of history, not what the conqueror, the controller, or whatever says history is, the truth of history, good, bad, and ugly, because you do learn from that, and you can become closer to people through that, and you can minimize hate through that, and so many things, because of it. There was a movie not too long ago about this older woman that did fight. I guess it was against Austria or something. Did fight to get ownership of the art that I guess her father had, or
Oh, you mean the Klimt actually? It's
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. The Golden Adele. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
yeah.
it was that
It
was
was amazing, and there's
yeah,
so much more like that. And I
yeah.
think it does bring, again, like you say, it does bring humanity up in a positive way to share these stories, even if some of the stories are yucky or ugly or whatever, you know.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it's I mean, some of these things, if reading that, it's sad. It's sometimes it's horrible, but um there is a saying actually. I think I learned it from some of my Jewish friends that someone is really really dead when you don't talk about him anymore.
That's brilliant. Yeah, that's brilliant.
And I think that's also the point, you
Have
know.
have you ever read the book by Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning?
No, I know Viktor Frankl, but I haven't read the book.
Yeah, it's amazing how I mean he was in the Holocaust, but way more and everything, and it's about also remembering history and what and everything, and but also that there is meaning in everything. Even
Yeah,
if it's a
yeah,
bad
I
thing, there's meaning.
absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree. I think it is. I mean, it's I even think that there is a meaning. I mean, it sounds sometimes probably a little bit well weird, but I think there is always meaning. I mean, there was a meaning. I've met people actually through what I've been doing uh, who are amazing. I mean, really, they're wonderful people. Um, and I got reactions which I never ever have dreamed in my life. Never. It was just not. I never. I started this in a rather well, not naive, but I thought, yeah, okay, I want to write it, and I think it makes sense. That it was the reactions and the feedback which I thought, wow, you touched here something, so it makes sense to move forward and to dig also a little bit deeper and well and give it a kind of a format uh, and move forward.
Well, you're touching people's hearts, and that's what people react to, and
Thank you.
it does make a difference. I've one more question I want to ask you on
Yeah.
this. I always joke around saying, in Los Angeles, we always say we got to leave people wanting more so we can do a sequel, type of deal. We got to always leave them wanting a little bit more. But in 2021, a client t told me he talked about 2020, the pandemic year, and he said it was the year that flew by slowly, he told me. And I always thought that was an interesting comment because even today, people look back and they feel like COVID was yesterday and years ago all at the same time. And now we're already at the end of 2025. Speaking of my aunt saying, where did 95 years go? I mean, yeah, where did it all go so fast? And with all that we've been through, what are you most grateful for? And also, what are you most hopeful for?
Grateful I am actually really for the people who I met, very much, unbelievably so.
Hmm,
And on a private level, I'm also grateful that my mother is still with me.
sure.
That's which is also very important. Hopeful, probably also I'm hopeful because the more we are out there, the more people are actually joining us and are showing courage. And I'm hopeful about courage.
That's awesome.
Uh, so that's I think what I really think is also very important. Not only the specific aspect, but I think it's civic courage is something which is unbelievably important. We can't we it's I'm always getting really very angry when I'm hearing about the silent majority. Well, for God's sake, don't be silent. Don't stay silent, because if many people won't be silent, then they are the majority now, and it's not the silent people who are the majority. So right now, if we're honest, in our societies, whenever we are here in Europe or in the States or wherever, in Canada, especially so in the Western world, we don't risk that much if we're really speaking up. This is not like we're not risking our lives, we are not risking, being ending in prison or whatever. So it's not like anyone can say and just say, oh, well, the risk is too high. Honestly, it's not that high. It's a tiny, teensy bit of spine. Uh,
Well,
and
the
it,
risk is,
yeah,
if I'm reading you right, the risk of not saying something is probably way higher.
exactly. Yeah, I think so. I think
Yeah.
so. And so I'm hopeful that more and more people actually are really going for that, and that the next year is going to be lots of people actually who are just speaking out and also coming on board with us.
Well, I'm grateful that I'm grateful that I have a new friend. That's the first thing. I'm grateful that you are a leader who cares and that you are sharing this because I think it's important and I'm hopeful actually for the same reason that it'll reach people's hearts, and if it reaches people's hearts, then it gives people, I think, some courage to actually you know come together in that same way. So thanks for being that, and thanks for being on our Leaders Who Care series.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It was really a pleasure.